More than 3 years after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Europe's energy security is fragile. US liquefied natural gas helped plug the Russian supply gap in Europe during the energy crisis of 2 to 3 years ago. But since then, President Donald Trump has rocked relations with Europe by turning to energy as a bargaining chip in trade negotiations. Businesses are wary that reliance on the US has become a vulnerability. Against this backdrop, executives at some major EU firms have begun to say what would have been unthinkable a year ago. They believe importing some Russian gas could be a good idea. Leuna Chemical Park hosts one of Germany's biggest chemical clusters. The country relied heavily on cheap Russian gas until the Ukraine war. Christoph Gunther is managing director of Infra Leuna.
There are initial peace negotiations driven by the American government. So there is a chance that the guns will fall silent. It would then be important and sensible for all sides to return to the supply of natural gas via the pipelines. That would be an important incentive for Russia in the peace negotiations.
Any such move would require another major policy shift for the EU. It pledged to end Russian energy imports by 2027 after Moscow invaded Ukraine. But Europe has limited options and talks with LNG giant Qatar for more gas have stalled. And while the deployment of renewables has accelerated, the rate isn't fast enough to allow the EU to feel secure. US gas covered just over 16% of EU imports last year, behind Norway with around a third and Russia at just under 19%. Moscow's share will drop below a tenth this year after Ukraine shut pipelines. While a return of Russian gas appeals to some executives, it worries Maxim Timchenko, who is chief of Ukraine's private gas company DTEK. The firm hopes to import US LNG into Ukraine's storage and export it to Europe. Timchenko is quoted as saying it's hard to comment, but his hope is that European politicians learned their lessons dealing with Russia.